Once again, a very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining uLaw's webinar. We are resuming after 3 months. As you all know, we had a small break this fall, and we're just resuming for the winter and almost spring. So it's a very nice topic that I wanted to start off with, or rather we wanted to start off with, considering that the Law Society annual report filing is coming up. I don't know how many of you have submitted. I thought this could be like more or less like a refresher to go over what are the types of documents or what are the requirements that Law Society is looking for from you from the perspective of a bookkeeping compliances. And keeping in mind, we have, this is also a CPD. I have entered on the chat window the attendance link and the topic information. For those who have joined a little late, do not worry, I will be reposting the details towards the end. Since it's only me, my colleague is not available here today. Please do not panic if you don't see the CPD attendance link once every 15 minutes. We will be sharing it towards the end of the session. Right? As you all know, that Law Society requires you to be compliant from various perspectives, starting off with client intake to the file management to financial management. Bookkeeping falls under financial management. So, many of us could do bookkeeping manually. One of you could use like a software that is not legal, legally related ones, or there could also be others who are using just a simple Excel spreadsheet. But when you are using legal practice management system, it is very evident that you're focusing on keeping yourself compliant with Law Society. And one of them is uLaw proudly saying that we have focused on every single document that Law Society requires you to maintain. And the process also, it's not just the document, the system, the process, records, and all of it are available in uLaw. And we're going to see how using uLaw and without using uLaw both, we're going to see how you could excel in keeping yourself compliant with Law Society from the bookkeeping aspect of it. Like you see here in the screen, whether it takes 10 minutes or 3 hours, it's definitely your talent. But like I said, if you are using a system like uLaw, it's not necessary that you have to have the accounting knowledge or you have to understand those accounting lingos. You have to just understand the process a little bit, which even a layman would want to understand if they're running a business or a small professional, kind of a small professional wing where they are having all of their related documents and records somewhere to upload these details, maintain them, monitor them. So as part of today's agenda, we're going to see these following points. We're definitely going to see what are ledgers, what are journals, what are different types of documents that you need to maintain, what takes you to maintain them, which is the process, how it can be simplified. Is reconciliation such a difficult task, or can this be done in a few seconds or a few minutes? How easy can it be? And what are the other documents other than reconciliations? I know most of you are aware about reconciliation because it's like the bread and butter for you when it comes to keeping yourself compliant. Because the moment you hear the word compliance, the first thing that comes to your mind is reconciliation, either the trust or the general. Am I reconciling my bank accounts? Is that good enough? Yeah, that is. yes, one of the points to keep in mind. But besides that, what are the things that you need to keep in mind to be compliant with Law Society? There are fee books, there are Form 9As, there are every time you receive deposits, every time you make deposits, every time you deposit a check, how do you really monitor them? How do you record them? And also what goes under the ledgers are basically the data that you have entered and how well have you entered them. Is the data incomplete? Is the data complete? And if the data is complete, what are the requirements? What do I need to keep in mind when I'm recording a simple transaction? Like, when you're recording a printing paper or maybe a courier charges, what is it that you need to keep in mind? We're going to see all of those under it, because technically what you record under those expenses is what gets converted into these ledgers as information later on. And how much time does all of these take? And last but not the least, benefits of using a legal practice management system or a legal accounting software. We're going to see all of those in today's agenda. Just to quickly recap, the topic for today's session is Law Society Bookkeeping Compliance. It is accredited for 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits. I'm repeating, 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits. uLaw does not provide substantiated CPD credits. Keeping that in mind, you are eligible for 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits today. And besides that, this is accredited across various provinces in Ontario, British Columbia, Alberta, and New Brunswick. If you are from one of these 4 provinces, you are eligible to get today's CPD credits. All right, so very basic thing about accounting system is the model that you're adopting to use, whether it's a double entry system, a single entry system, whether it's there's no more single entry in the sense nobody does just single entry where only one of the accounts are recorded and the other one is not. So I'll keep it straight. It's more of double entry system these days, where you could use a spreadsheet, you could use a general accounting software like QuickBooks, you could use a legal accounting software like uLaw, and there are many advantages and disadvantages to it. Yes, of course, you are when you're using manual method or when you're using a spreadsheet software, it's pretty simple. It's not expensive. In fact, most of them are free. If you have a laptop or a system, you're just going to enter into the spreadsheet. But it's so time consuming. It also requires you to do the formulas. You would want to also do the records and the ledgers and the journals all by yourself. And, that's probably why it's time consuming, considering number of transactions you would be entering in the due course. And when it comes to general accounting software, relatively faster because automatic calculations in there. There's also, posting into subledgers, and you also get some financial reports, maybe like sales reports, income reports, balance sheets, trial balance, common reports, not the specific legal accounting related reports or not the specific bookkeeping compliance reports laid out by Law Society. So for which is where legal accounting software is required to be used, and it is designed especially for trust accounting and automated calculations, posting into journals, ledgers, subledgers, produces various reports including fee book and Form 9As. And one of the disadvantages, of course, when compared to other softwares or other methods or systems of accounting, this is a little expensive method or system, and it requires training because one cannot simply understand the program if you have not learned it earlier, and you need to take some training. But once you're hands on it, you get to enjoy the time you're saving, because you only have to do the data entry where, you would say, I had a client visiting me, I had, then enter their information, which is client intake. Then you have the conflict check automatically populating once you click on that button. And then you open a file, you enter some dockets, you raise an invoice, and you collect the payment, which is the second step. And this will automatically create an AR, which is accounts receivable, and it'll also show the payment under the respective client's account, which is the payment against the AR. So it gets knocked off and the posting goes into the sub-ledgers, where if you look at the fee book, if you look at the invoice balances, everything would be automatically created. And this is also what Law Society wants to see end of the day, right? Because we want to know how you get the money, where you get the money, who pays you the money, and have you genuinely completed the work for it, because you've raised an invoice. So there is an AR, and how have you handled it? Now, all this put together is what a legal accounting software provides you. Other than that, of course, you have a million things that you could do in a software, depending upon which software you've gone with. But the basic essential thing about using a legal accounting software is to make sure your trust accounting is, taken care of. Now, of course, you may have different bank accounts. You can also do reconciliations and data entry under the multiple bank accounts. And you have multiple trust accounts sometimes, especially the real estate lawyers, where they have, one trust account, mixed trust account, another one specifically for, real estate practice, where they have various other expenses that would go from just that specific account. So all of them are considered under this accounting system and taken care of, especially with automatic calculations in place. So, and of course, posting into the respective ledgers, sub-ledgers too, and financial reports. So keeping in mind using an accounting system, first of all, selecting an accounting system that suits you, that suits your firm, that suits your requirement, and you have adequate knowledge about it, and you've made research, you've done your research on it, and then you've settled down to choosing one of them. Once you're on it, you have understood the system, you have gathered information, you have addressed it in the system, then you have the respective reports coming up for Law Society. Now, under the respective reports, we did see about the ledgers. Now, what goes into the ledgers, what basically comes as a ledger, or rather what is seen as a ledger. Now, ledgers are of various types. It's a wholesome record of both incoming and outgoing activities under both trust and ledgers. So there's only one type of ledger for each bank account, if I could say. There's one for trust, another one for general. So if trust activities for both incoming and outgoing are captured under the client's trust ledger for various clients, for various transactions, for various dates in one single account. And the general ledger is a replica of the same trust ledger, but has a couple of additional columns that would include the HST and invoicing amount. Each ledger also has a running balance, because on that specific date what was the balance. And as you all see here on the screen, there's probably a sample of how a ledger looks like and what goes into a ledger. First of all, the client's name and the matter title, everything is entered in there. Particulars, as in what is the transaction, and then if receipts, which is incoming wire, and disbursements, it's an outgoing amount, and there's a balance. So these are captured under it. Now, this is very specific to the type of activity that takes place in your practice, that specific date, that specific day, and for that specific client. So making sure you've captured them under the right client, under the right set of transactions. You're not capturing receipts under payments, payments under receipts. You're not basically interchanging, but you're making sure that they're all in one place, which is under the respective accounts. Now, over here, under the general ledger, we have, because it's general account, and each of the receipt is against an invoice. So the invoice number is also captured. And these are all automated. Now, imagine if you're using your own account, of course, you'll have to, for your own system, or maybe an Excel spreadsheet or something, you will have to record these particulars yourself than automatically having it generated. So that is one of the other positive aspects of using legal accounting software, and keeping in mind that every receipt is placed against invoice. You have the particulars with the invoice number, and if there's any disbursements or expenses, you enter them under the expenses on behalf of client. And then you have the fee with HST, anything without HST, the total, and the balance. Of course, the payments, totals, and the balance, they are very similar. Date and particulars are similar. The additional one I would say is the expenses, fee, and HST column. Right? So ledgers are a little wholesome. It gives a little bigger picture of what is happening in the particular client's account. Now, the next one is journals. Journals are also a bookkeeping compliant account, or rather records. Journals are a little bit more drilled down version of ledgers. Basically, they each type of activity, that is payment and receipts, they have their own set of journals. So you have a payment journal, and then you have a receipt journal, you have a disbursement journal, and you have again a receipt journal for cost and general respectively. So as you see, there are 2 ledgers, but there are 4 journals. So when you go into journal, you get to see more detailed version of what is happening in that particular ledger. For example, if you have in the ledger that you have received 565, in journal, in the receipts journal, you have who you have received it from and the method of payment, which is an additional amount. If you look at the ledger, you won't be seeing that in the ledger. You don't have the method of payment, and you don't have the payee details too. Whereas in journal, since it's more drilled down version of the ledger, you have additional information over here in the journal. So the receipt journal, the disbursement journal also has method of payments, who you have paid to, which is the payee details, and the particulars, which is also known as purpose of payment over here, and the amount. When it comes to general, obviously, there's a little bit more details when in comparison to trust, because you have the HST details over here, whether it's inclusive or non-inclusive. Moving on to the next one. You have reconciliation part, because once the journals and the ledgers are done, you move on to the reconciliation part, as this is one of the most important bookkeeping requirements from Law Society. Trust needs to be reconciled before every 25th of the month for the previous month end. Now, let's say if I'm in March, on 1st of March. So I have time till 21st of March to reconcile
the month end of Feb 29th. This year being a leap year, I have to reconcile from 1st Feb to 29th Feb. And this is the accounting procedure that demonstrates every transaction that is recorded in the books in comparison to your bank records, which is, reconciling the amounts, the outstanding payments, outstanding deposits needs to be reduced and added respectively. There are different trust accounts. So if you have mixed trust account, you would repeat the same process for the different various trust accounts, but you need to reconcile one trust account at a time. So you have a balance as per the bank statement handy, which is seen on your bank statement as on 29th Feb. And you reduce all the outstanding checks that you have issued but has not been cleared yet. And you again add outstanding deposits, anything that was issued to you and you haven't deposited them into the bank yet. And if any bank error, that is, if bank has made any error, please make sure to note down that. Let the bank know and they will reverse it. If it is not done within the month, which is within the end of the month, then you have to report it as the bank error over here. So the balance as per bank statement minus outstanding checks, add the outstanding deposits, and add or subtract bank error, and you're left with the reconciled mixed trust balance. As part of the trust bank reconciliation documents, there's something called as trust listing, client trust listing. Now, this is what you see as the balances of each client in your trust account. It is basically breakup of your clients holding balances in your trust account and how much is it and when was the last date of transaction. And that gives you an idea of trust liability. So this is what you're liable to pay back to your client because they are balanced in trust. It's not your money, but it is your client's money, right? And lastly, you get to compare the trust bank balance with the client's trust ledger to ensure that they are matching. Quickly pausing here to see if there are any questions, and I'm also going to probably enter the attendance link and the details of today's session once again on the chat window. Glad there are no questions. I'll be happy to take questions anytime on the chat window, or you can also hold on to the last 5 minutes where we could discuss the questions. Now, what is the fee book about? We have about 12 to 13 documents that are Law Society bookkeeping compliance related, and one among them is you have two ledgers, that makes it 2, 4 journals, that makes it 6. And then you have the trust bank reconciliation, 7, general bank reconciliation, 8, and other documents such as fee book, Form 9A, 9, 10. And there is also general credit card reconciliations and other Law Society documents as part of bookkeeping compliances. The fee book records all invoices and disbursements.
raised as invoices to be recorded from client. So when you have a fee book, you know that for sure these are the details that needs to go under it. When you're trying to maintain it on your own, like if you're using something like uLaw, you can just forget it and just clearly download it. But if you are entering data, what are the things that you need to keep in mind? You, of course, need to have client information, the invoice numbers, the total, whether it's billable with HST or without HST or pre-HST or post-HST. It's not just HST, but of course other things such as GST, PST. And you also have the total. Now, as you all see the sample for specific clients, you get to see, for a specific period, you get to see the fee book. And it also records all the invoice numbers because it's related to a fee collected. And the respective taxes too. The other compliance documents that goes under it are Form 9A. If you're in Ontario and you move money from trust to the general, especially after you have completed the trust transfer, you need to generate a Form 9A. As you all see, it's an electronic trust transfer acquisition form. And you're required to maintain this Form 9A upon generating the trust transfer. And the electronic fund transfers requires Form 9A, where you have the bank information, client information, and also the reason for the payment, whether it was an invoice for legal fee, billing, or any other disbursements, etc. There is also cash deposits, any receipts or deposit slips that you need to generate, and Form 9A deposit slips, other verification documents, and duplicate cash receipts, as you all see here at the bottom. These are some of the other documents, other compliance documents, and what takes it to create them, making sure that you have complete client information under the clientele system. You have also recorded cash under cash account and not under the respective bank accounts. So making sure that you have also other cash deposits that goes under cash account, because the trust cash account can be a little confusing. So here's what people do. They think the trust cash account is also a trust account. No, but trust cash account is a separate cash account where you first get the money into the cash account, then you remove the money from the cash account and deposit into the trust account. So there's an inward, outward, and then an inward, which is cash account in, cash account out, trust account in. So for which you definitely need to generate duplicate cash receipts, and also the cash deposits need a deposit slips. As part of compliances, these are the other documents. Now, how do you spend time managing all of this? If you are doing it manually, yes, it's pretty time consuming. Now, if you're trying to do them on a seamless accounting system where double entry is all automated and the records and data is all automated, you just probably need to record the information where the information is probably entered under the particular system, and they go into the respective records, and you're also able to enter the mistakes at a time where, if there's any mistakes that can be prone to it, especially entering records under the wrong accounts, or probably entering wrong details. You could avoid it at this time where you can use a system that would alarm you, or that will make sure that is not allowing you to enter. Hence, there's a seamless accounting. You're able to manage the matter better, accounting better, saves you a lot of time, helps you prepare the reconciliation reports with all the recurring data. Basically, you're not needed to enter the recurring data. Like, if there is a client payment you're entering under the matter, you don't have to repeat that under the accounts. Same thing that has been entered under the matter, if there's anything that is involving the accounts, will show up under the accounting accounts too. So automatic maintaining ledgers and journals of matter workflow keeps accounting data and bank records very close. So there's accuracy is more, time is saved, reconciliation is simple, and errors are prevented, which makes the overall workflow more seamless. And that's how you spend less time. Last but not the least, benefits of accounting software. Recording events as and when it happens. You don't wait until end of the month to record it. And the financial records and bank records, making sure they're as close as possible, so that it makes your reconciliation task much simpler. Finally, it's definitely about compliances, accountability, because end of the day, we just want to know whether you have accounted for all the transactions, analytics, and ease to use. These are the advantages of using a legal accounting software. I would like to use the last 20 minutes to walk you all through compliance documents in uLaw. And in the meantime, I'd like to take a quick pause to see if there are any questions, and also reiterating that today's topic is a CPD session on Law Society bookkeeping compliances. I will be sharing the details, link for attendance, once again towards the end of the session. If you just can give me a minute, I'm going to quickly switch the screen to uLaw screen to show you all how everything looks, especially with the bookkeeping compliance part. So what takes it to keep yourself compliant is not directly jumping into this page and clicking on compliance. I'll walk you through an example, what takes it to, this level. Number one, especially starting off with adding information, complete information. I can also add information and still keep it incomplete. Like, for example, just add the client's name and leave rest of the information incomplete. That is definitely not keeping yourself compliant with Law Society. I know it's not bookkeeping part, but it's one of the basic parts where you are entering the information of your clients entirely complete, and then you move on to save and matter. So now let's say you add the information. This is one of the most important parts, source of contact, the address, phone number, you add other information of the client, and you first save it. Once you have saved it, you will move on to creating the compliance part over here. Compliances, basic compliance, even though it's not bookkeeping compliance, but keeping yourself compliant, step one. Okay, so you have the conflict check done. And then you move on to opening the matter. Over here, to keep yourself compliant with the books, you start off with creating a file for every single client. Now, when you have one for every single client, you get to see their details. And over here, this is about adding the client's file details. Let's see. This. I'd like to show a few transactions that goes under the ledgers and the journals. First thing first, you're collecting a small retainer, which is a trust receipt, which will be shown under the trust receipt journal and under the trust ledger too. So on a retainer, I'm very deliberately and carefully adding the method of payment, the reference number, and who you have received it from. Sometimes it could be the client, sometimes it could be client's family member. So you're also giving them a receipt and applying the funds. Yeah. Once you have the receipt, please file them. And then you move on to adding more information. You're raising an invoice, the same amount, plus taxes, of course. And you're also doing a disbursement. So this will come under the general disbursement journal. Okay, disbursements from general. How do you spend for it? From your general or your credit card, respectively. Then if you have reference number for it, save it. Now you get the invoice so that you get to see how everything gets posted into the respective journals and sub-ledgers and ledgers. Done with it. Okay, so you have the information of the billing and disbursements and other things, yeah, including the retainer. Okay, now you go back into accounts and try to click on compliance and download the monthly compliance, which is where you get all of the information. Let's start off with client's trust ledger. Just today's one I'm taking. Acacia George. You're going to see how everything works, very similar to what we saw in the slides earlier. You have the date, your first, the client account details. including the file number and the file name. Then you also have the particulars. You have the receipt because it's a receipt ledger, and any invoice or disbursements. Right now, the invoices or disbursements is showing 0 because you have not disbursed anything from the trust. But if I go back now and go into that matter and complete the trust disbursement, which is moving the money from trust to the general, and make a simple transfer in the bank, then you make it in uLaw, electronic fund transfer, complete it. You'll download a Form 9A, another important document for bookkeeping compliances. Just see how smoothly I'm able to do it one by one, because not because I'm well versed about it, but because I was trained and I also know the Law Society compliance requirement. Hence, I'm able to do it at the same time. Now, I have transferred the money from trust to the general, $500. If I go back and click on client's trust ledger, you will now see that the money has been taken out, which is the general disbursement. The previous one is this, which is the 500 remaining in trust. And now after I move the money from trust to the general, the ledger looks like this with the disbursement information. Okay, I can go back, click on client's general. It will not show you the money that was collected, 121.50, but it is still showing as balance owed because you've not yet gotten it into the general account. If I go back, then I click on collect, which is client payment. Once the client pays into the general account without fail, please enter that to the program. That would allow you to maybe generate a proper and complete journal and ledger. Always issue and receipt for every transaction that has happened. Now that's the receipt. Now if I go back to accounts and download the monthly compliance with client general now, with the payment coming in for 121.50, you'll see the balance as 0. There you go. Okay. Now it's not empty. Over here, I want to do a client's trust receipt journal and a general receipt journal, client's trust payments, and a general disbursement. Let me show you how everything looks as natural down version under the journal. You'll see only the receipt journal over here. Over here we have the purpose of funds. It's a retainer that was collected. That is the purpose. And there's also a method of payment, which was check. Besides that, you also have who you have received it from, the source of funds. Now, when you go back in there and click on the general receipt, you will see including the trust transfer that was made and the payment of 121.50 in there. So a total of 621.50 that we had recorded today. The $500 that was transferred from trust to the general, you will see the method of payment, electronic fund transfer with the requisition number, and the email transfer with the reference number. And we also have other information entered in here. Which includes the source of funds and the matter number, the file number, and in here. When I go back and click on general disbursement, I think I disbursed today for the courier charges of a small amount, which is now entered in here under the general disbursement because I had used my credit card to disburse this amount. Moving on, I'd like to show how the fee book looks with the legal fee of $621.50 and the amount with HST and without HST, everything included in there. The important part to remember when you're raising an invoice is to make sure that whether you're collecting taxes or no taxes, if you're eligible or not, has to be kept in mind. Right? And that needs to be entered appropriately. Besides that, we also have the reconciliations and the expense book. Form 9A, which was already downloaded, but in case you forget to download when you're already on the account, still go in there and download it here. Gives you all the information of each and every transaction detail, such as the reason, the account that was debited, and the account that was also credited. Need to complete the signatures and enter it in there. Reconciliations, last but not the least, both trust and general. If you've added all of the information that we've discussed in the last 55 minutes, reconciliation is a very simple task. You're just going to enter the date for the month end you're going to reconcile, the balance that you see on your bank statement, clear the transactions that you have entered, as you see at the bottom, step 3. Step 4, making sure that the reconciled balances match. And step 5, the reconciliation button pops up where you just have to complete the reconciliation. So now this is pretty straightforward, or if and only you followed everything that we have discussed so far, like recording the transactions and ensuring there's accuracy in date, amount, client information. You're not mixing up with the clients, and also ensuring that all of those details that are on the bank statements, including the amount of the debits and the credits, match with the balances here. So you ensure that for every line item in the bank statement has been covered. You have entered everything into your books of accounts, and the financials or the books match with these transactions on your bank statements. That would allow you to complete the reconciliations in no time. So I hope I've covered most of the points for Law Society compliances from the bookkeeping aspect of it. For the ones who have not done any of these, it's not too late. Please go into your respective uLaw accounts and go into your compliance tab under accounts and download them all for the year. That would also give you all the transactions that needs to be completed for the year in there. I hope I've made some justice here. I am thanking each and every one of you for joining today's session. I'm going to open the floor for any questions, and I'm also going to post, like I said, the attendance link and the topic over here once again for all of you to note down. And any questions, welcome to use the chat window, and I would be happy to answer them right away. Just to keep the recording short, I'm going to probably stop the recording in a couple minutes. But if any questions, you're welcome to use chat window, or you can also unmute. And once I stop the recording, you can also unmute yourself and ask a question over here. But for the ones who are using uLaw, please do check out these compliance documents. They're super useful, especially when it comes to the time where the annual report filing is around the corner. You'd be able to generate all of these numbers that goes in time for, their annual report filing. All right. So thank you so much, each and everyone, for joining in. There'll be some useful links entered in the chat window. I request you all to stay back to note down. And questions are welcome on the chat window. Thank you.